Her nickname is Android 18. And the terrifying part is that Itsuki Hirata didn't choose the nickname for marketing. 8 wins, 5 submissions, 2 TKOs. She won all her fights on the Fighting Agent War reality show.
The drama surrounding Itsuki Hirata is not manufactured through a marketing team or a carefully engineered persona built for social media consumption. It is organic, authentic, and slightly unsettling to anyone who watches her fight for the first time without knowing what they are about to see. Her nickname is Android 18, the same Dragon Ball Z character who dismantles trained warriors with the facial expression of someone who just finished a quiet afternoon at a beauty salon. And the detail that makes this genuinely fascinating is that Hirata did not choose that nickname for branding purposes or commercial appeal. She chose it because it is an accurate description of what actually happens when you step into the cage with her. 8 wins, 5 submissions, 2 TKOs, a judoka since the age of 6, a perfect 4-0 start that announced something extraordinary was arriving, a collapse that nearly ended everything, and a comeback in Tokyo with a rear naked choke applied against an Indian national wrestling champion who had no answer for an android that refuses to stay shut down. To understand Itsuki Hirata, you have to understand where she began. The fighting instincts that look so natural inside the cage were not developed in an MMA gym chasing professional ambitions. They were built on a judo mat starting at age 6, not even by her own initial choice, but because she followed her older brother to the gym one day and fell in love with a sport before she was old enough to fully understand what it was. She became prefectural champion in high school and placed 3rd nationally at elementary level. When she eventually watched MMA on television after graduating, something clicked that could not be undone. Judo, she realized, was never the destination. It was the prologue to something considerably bigger. The Android 18 nickname was not an accident of branding. It is the Dragon Ball character who is simultaneously the most beautiful and most lethal presence in any room. A fighting machine with a human appearance who dismantles trained warriors without altering her expression by a single degree. Hirata does not imitate the character. She lives it. She cosplays as Android 18 at public events, walks to the cage with Dragon Ball music playing, and fights with the same robotic coldness that makes the character genuinely unforgettable. Her path to professional MMA came through Fighting Agent War, a reality competition that gave unknown fighters a stage and a contract for whoever could prove themselves worthy. Hirata won every single fight on the show by submission and earned her one championship contract before turning 20. Her professional debut at 19 against Anali Sabanel told the audience everything immediately. Sabanel probably looked across at a Japanese teenager who seemed more interested in Dragon Ball cosplay than mixed martial arts and made the assumption most people make when they first see Hirata. Appearances lie. The Americana does not. Hirata closed the distance, took Sabanel down with a judo throw, carrying the efficiency of something practiced thousands of times until it required no conscious thought, and applied a shoulder lock that bends the arm in a direction human anatomy considers a fundamental violation. First round submission, 19 years old. The Android 18 nickname stopped being a reference and started being a documentary. What made that debut most striking was not the technique, but the expression. Hirata showed no emotion during the finish, did not scream or celebrate with visible relief. She simply executed, and when it was over, she looked at the camera with the satisfaction of someone who had just completed a familiar task. Not surprised? Just finished. Her next opponent, Ra Ishigai, discovered that the Americana was nowhere near the only submission available. Hirata maintained mount position throughout, delivering constant pressure that gave Ishigai no opportunity to breathe or think, and in the second round transitioned into an armbar so fluid it looked choreographed. The difference between choreography and what Hirata does is simple. In choreographed sequences, nobody taps the mat begging for release. That armbar was later selected as one of the best finishes of the year. 2 fights, 2 submissions, 2 first rounds, and one promotion that understood exactly what they had. Fight 3 against Nyreen Crowley gave critics their opening, and they took it immediately, producing the same tired narrative that follows every dominant grappler. She only has judo. If the fight stays standing, she is in trouble. It is the MMA equivalent of saying a shark is only dangerous in water. Technically accurate, but dangerously incomplete. Hirata took Crowley down, worked ground and pound with elbows and sustained pressure, and in the third round delivered a sequence of strikes from mount that the referee decided was sufficient reason to intervene. First TKO, third consecutive victory. Proof that Android 18 is not a single-function program, but a full operating system with continuous updates. By February 2021, Hirata was headlining. The girl who 2 years earlier had been an unknown on a reality show was now the reason people purchased tickets. Against Miku Nakamura, she took her opponent down in the second round, delivered ground and pound that gave the referee everything needed to stop the contest, and walked away with a main event victory. 4-0, 4 finishes, not a single fight going to a scorecard. The path to a title appeared inevitable. The promoters saw a future champion. The fans called her the face of women's atomweight. And then the dark chapter arrived. 4 losses in 5 fights against Rodnan, Ham, Miura, and Souza. The judoka who had finished everything could not find a win across an entire stretch of her career. Critics wrote her off. Promoters moved her from main events to preliminary cards. After the submission loss to Souza's, Hirata posted on Instagram with the kind of honesty that is difficult to read without feeling its weight. She was sorry she could not deliver value to everyone who had always supported her, and she thanked them for letting her stand on such a wonderful stage. She stopped training. She considered retiring. At 24 years old, the android appeared permanently shut down, but in Dragon Ball, androids do not die. They reboot. The reboot happened in Tokyo at One Samurai 1 inside the Ariake Arena, in front of her home crowd for the first time in her One Championship career. Across from her stood Ritu Phogat, the Indian Tigress, former Indian national wrestling champion, daughter of the Phogat family whose story became the Bollywood film Dangal, a world-class wrestler with takedowns capable of controlling anyone. Hirata had never won a fight at home and was coming off 4 losses in 5 contests. Phogat was the favorite. The experts said Hirata had already passed her peak, that the android was obsolete. Round 1, Phogat pressed with wrestling, took Hirata down, and established ground control. It looked exactly like what the experts predicted. Then Hirata activated what androids always activate when cornered, survival mode. She reversed position before the round ended and finished it with ground and pound on top. Round 2, she took Phogat down with a judo throw, gained her back, and nearly finished with a rear naked choke that Phogat survived on pure desperation. Round 3, Phogat shot for a desperate takedown. Hirata defended, gained mount, delivered ground and pound that left Phogat covering up with nothing remaining. And when Phogat attempted escape, Hirata transitioned to the back for the 3rd time and locked in the rear naked choke. There was no escape. Submission round 3 against a national wrestling champion in Tokyo in her first home victory in One Championship after 4 losses in 5 fights, after nearly retiring, after writing an apology to her fans on Instagram when asked how she felt. Her answer contained none of the declarations most fighters produce in a comeback moment. She said she was just relieved, not that she was the best, not that she always knew she would win, just relief. Because this victory was never about rankings or belts or proving critics wrong publicly. It was about one thing, or proving the android still works, that the story was not finished, that the reboot was successful. 8 wins, 5 submissions, 2 TKOs, a debut Americana at 19, a viral armbar selected as finish of the year, a 4-loss fall that brought her within a decision of walking away, and a comeback choke in Tokyo that proved what the critics had forgotten. Androids do not retire. They reboot. She looks like a Barbie. She calls herself Android 18. She fights like a judoka and finishes like a machine with no setting for mercy and no concept of a system error. The android is back online, and this time she has no intention of shutting down again. Drop your answer in the comments. Can Itsuki Hirata go all the way to a One Championship title from here?